we are being joined now by a national live stream audience. Welcome to the CEDA 2024 State of the State Address here in Queensland, to be delivered by the Honourable Dr. Stephen Miles. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Professor Deborah Terry AO, a long supporter of CEDA and the Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of Queensland. Please make her feel very welcome.
Thank you very much, Clint. Can I too acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. It is my great honour to welcome you all here today, including those who are joining us via the live stream. At the University of Queensland, we're delighted to once again be a co-sponsor of this landmark annual event, the Queensland State of the State Address. Now, this is the 5th consecutive year that I've represented UQ at this event, but it is the first occasion that I've had the privilege of introducing our state's 40th Premier, the Honourable Stephen Miles, MP. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Premier, as well as his parliamentary colleagues and the many distinguished guests who have joined us here today. Of course, we're staging this event at a time when the eyes of the world are firmly fixed on Paris as the French capital stages the 33rd Olympiad. And I think I speak for us all when I say it has been a mesmerising spectacle, not only because of the outstanding performances of Australia's athletes, but because of the realisation that exactly 8 years from now, the spotlight will turn to Brisbane as we host the world's athletes for our Olympic fortnight. To my mind, Brisbane 2032 is so much more than a global sporting event. It's a once-in-a-century opportunity to showcase all that is great about our city and our state to a global audience. It's a chance to show our outward-looking modern face as a new world city, a clean, green and sustainable city that makes the most of its subtropical climate and our stunning natural environment. A diverse and inclusive city that's safe and welcoming, and a city that is at the heart of a diverse and thriving state economy that's driven by innovation, technology, expertise and talent. Right now, there is a real momentum in our state's economic development, spurred on by clever collaborations between industry, government and our universities. In other words, we're seeing the power of what is referred to as the triple helix model of innovation, and that's helping to fuel the emergence of a knowledge-based economy here in Queensland. Just last year, for instance, we launched Australia's Food and Beverage Accelerator, or FABA as it's known, as a partnership between UQ, QUT, UniSQ, as well as government and industry partners. FABA is leveraging our competitive advantages in agriculture and our expertise in food science to amplify the commercial output and export potential of our local food and beverage manufacturing sector. Another example is the state government's initiative to establish the Queensland Decarbonisation Hub. This new hub is a partnership between the government and 7 of our state's universities to help support local industries and communities to seize the opportunities of a transition to a low-carbon economy. And of course, one of the greatest Queensland success stories has been the rapid growth in our state's vaccine and therapeutic sector over the past 2 decades. Queensland is now renowned as a globally significant hub for biomedical research, development and innovation, a position that will be further enhanced in 2026 when the new translational manufacturing at TRI facility opens at Dutton Park. Thanks to the Queensland Government, this will be our nation's first dedicated facility to support high-potential medtech and biotech startups. And the anchor tenant will be Sanofi, a global pharmaceutical company that is already working closely with colleagues at Griffith University and UQ on new vaccine candidates and therapeutics. These are just a handful of the many encouraging examples of collaboration that are driving economic development across Queensland. And I know that my colleagues here today can point to other examples of industry-building collaborations in areas ranging from critical minerals, batteries, sustainable aviation fuels, right through to quantum and advanced technologies. This is exciting because it points to the emergence of Queensland as a state that boasts high-quality jobs in knowledge-based industries, and it points to the growing maturity and diversity of the Queensland economy. And on that note, it's my great privilege to introduce Queensland's Premier, the Honourable Stephen Miles, MP, to deliver the 2024 State of the State Address. Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which this event is taking place and pay my respects to elders past and present. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here to present to the Committee for Economic Development of Australia my first CEDA State of the State Address. I have spoken at CEDA events in my other portfolios, and I always appreciate the chance to engage with the thought leaders of our state. I also appreciate the opportunity these events provide for us to outline in some more depth our thoughts on issues and also to be a bit more reflective. It's fair to say sometimes in these jobs we move at such a pace that we don't always get the chance to do either of those things. It is a great honour to be the Premier of Queensland. Today, I've been Premier for 235 days, just over 7 months. A day I could never have dreamed of catching the train from Petrie all those years ago, Clint. Back then, I really just wanted to make the train cheaper. What Queenslanders have told me as I've listened to them over those 235 days is that they are experiencing the economy differently at the moment. One of the cruel things about using interest rates in the way the RBA has to address global inflation is it punishes renters and those with newer mortgages. It means some Queenslanders are doing very well, while many are struggling. For as long as I can remember, we always thought an economy delivering for working people was one with low unemployment. But despite unprecedented low unemployment for some time, that isn't translating to positive experiences for most Queenslanders. We know that in time, as wages increase faster than inflation, Queenslanders will get back to where we were before the inflation crisis hit. What Queenslanders need in the meantime is support. It's why our budget measures on things like electricity bills and vehicle rego are designed to help families to get through this difficult time and out the other side. Because that's what good governments do. We make sure that everyone has opportunity and that we look after all of our people. And we take action on the important issues to make a difference. In this speech, I want to put what I have done since I became Premier in the context of the challenges of today, and also begin to outline bigger plans for the future that I will take to the election in October. Let me take you through a taste of what I've done these last 7 months. In December, I launched the South East Queensland Regional Plan, providing the planning framework and infrastructure for almost 900,000 homes by 2046. In January, I launched new police helicopter capability in Townsville, a new eye in the sky for North Queensland to enhance community safety. And it's made a big difference up there. In February, I launched our $3.1 billion Homes for Queenslanders plan. It's the single largest investment in Queensland housing ever to build more homes faster, support renters, help first homeowners, boost our social housing, and work to end homelessness. In March, we launched our Women and Girls Health Strategy, backed by over $1 billion. And we established our Supermarket Pricing Select Committee to hold the supermarkets to account and help drive down household grocery bills. In April, I launched our evidence-based community safety plan, underpinned by $1.28 billion. It's a plan for intervention, prevention, and detention where necessary, to support victims, deliver frontline policing, detain offenders to protect the community, intervene when people offend, and prevent crime before it occurs. In May, I announced that every Queensland household would get at least $1,000 off their electricity bill. The biggest cost of living relief initiative of any state government ever. In June, we backed that up with our first budget, including $11.2 billion in cost of living relief and a record 10.6% increase to the health budget. And we launched the Putting Queensland Kids First plan, which invests $500 million to make sure our littlest Queenslanders are getting the best start in life so they can have a bright and productive future. That's a personal passion of mine, intervening early to make sure less young people end up on the wrong path. In July, we opened the 7th of 7 new satellite hospitals, bringing healthcare closer to home and taking pressure off emergency departments. That's something I started when I was the health minister. And this month, just yesterday in fact, we launched 50-cent fares on public transport. All modes, all zones, all over the state. That kid from Petrie finally did it. I made the train cheaper. We've worked hard, we've backed the evidence, we've taken tough decisions, and now we are seeing signs that we are turning a corner. Take housing for an example. I've spoken before about how fortunate I feel to have had secure housing. My parents scraped together the money to buy that quarter-acre block in Petrie and build a wonderful family home for me and my sister Kate. Today, Kim and I have built a good home where we're raising our 3 wonderful kids. I want all Queenslanders to have the same opportunity of knowing what it's like to have that security. So this government is supporting Queenslanders into housing with our Homes for Queenslanders plan. Eligibility for the first home concession has been extended to homes with a dutiable value up to $800,000. That's up from $550,000. We heard from the development industry that infrastructure charges were a barrier to commercial viability. So the state will pay those infrastructure charges under a $350 million initiative in the housing plan. The infill fund has had more than 220 applications in June this year, equating to more than 12,000 homes and 4,000 lots. And since its release in April, our state facilitated development program to fast-track approvals for new homes has received over 150 inquiries that could deliver 30,000 new homes. Between January and June this year, we added 752 more homes to our social housing stock. That's a 33% increase on what was added in the prior 6 months. In the 9 months to March this year, we have assisted 39,942 people through specialist homelessness services. That is 2,528 more people than in the same period last year. Since I've been Premier, the number of households in Housing Investment Fund supported homes has increased by more than 420% to 615 households and over 1,000 people. As a result of all of that work and more, there were 141 less families waiting on the social housing register than at the same time last year. On health, in the face of unprecedented demand in our emergency departments, our hero health workers and our investments have been making a real difference. Our satellite hospitals have helped reduce emergency visits in their areas by 12% in the March quarter compared to the same period last year. In the 9 months to March this year, more than 4,200 more patients were transferred from ambulance to the ED within 30 minutes when compared to the same period the year before. In the most recent quarterly data, more than 36,800 patients had elective surgery, a record for the March quarter. And long waits for elective surgery dropped 38% in the March quarter compared to the same period in 2023, a drop of almost 3,000 patients. Despite record ED presentations, a 7.9% increase in triple O calls, and an 11% increase in Category 1 patients, 100% of Category 1 patients in our EDs started treatment within 2 minutes. Queensland today ranks second in the nation on overall ED wait times. Another issue Queenslanders are raising with me is crime. There's no simple solution to youth crime. By and large, Queensland kids are good kids. But the causes of youth crime are as complex as the world these kids are growing up in. It means that there is a small cohort of young people who are doing the wrong thing. And Queenslanders can't be expected to tolerate that. It's why we're investing in prevention, intervention, and detention. There's more to do, but we are starting to see kids turning back to the right path. The average number of young people who are serious repeat offenders has fallen 14% in the 6 months to May this year. And the first quarter of 2024 saw a 10.7% drop in overall offences committed by young people compared to the same reporting period last year. Obviously, any crime is too much crime, but we're on the right track and we need to stay the course to keep Queenslanders safe. None of these results would have been possible without significant investment. And our investments are possible because our economy is strong. Thanks to the government, this government, taking the strong decisions. Strong decisions like introducing the progressive coal royalty rates. Our prosperity has allowed us to make these investments, and it means I can do more, so much more, if I'm given the opportunity. For the last 7 months, as you can see, we've been hyper-focused, dealing with the here and now, just like I promised I would. But now, as we start to turn the corner on those challenges, I want to talk to you about the future, about choices, about vision. Between now and October, I'll outline my vision for the Queensland that I want to create. An unashamedly ambitious vision, backed by the plans and the determination to make it happen. A vision for a transport system that connects us and seizes the opportunity of growth. A vision for an energy system that drives down energy costs and sets our economy up to boom for generations to come. A vision for a health system that brings more healthcare closer to home. And a vision for our Queensland lifestyle that keeps us the envy of the world. Today, I want to start with transport. It's timely because we started 50-cent fares yesterday. Did I mention that's something I wanted to do since I was a teenager? Today, I want to tell you more about my plan for an affordable, efficient, accessible, sustainable, and connected transport system for Queensland. Great transport has the power to create communities and opportunity and productivity and connection. It drives economic growth and better environmental outcomes. It is a powerful lever in creating the kind of Queensland I want us to be. And 50-cent fares, well, that's just the start. Yesterday, Queenslanders saved about $1 million on the first day of 50-cent fares. That's $1 million back in Queenslanders' pockets today. 641,900 people used public transport across Queensland alone and patronage was up on pre-COVID levels. Sure, it's getting more people onto public transport. Sure, it's freeing up our congested roads. And sure, it's good for the environment and for people. But what I'm really doing in this 6-month trial is seeing if every Queenslander who wanted to catch public transport could, where would the pinch points be? Where would we need extra services and more park and rides? How can we make this network better? Everything that we can do to make public transport a great option is a great investment. We're investing billions to build and modernise and update our networks to deliver affordable, accessible, efficient and sustainable transport for all Queenslanders. If we're spending those billions, why wouldn't we do everything we can to get more people using it? This investment supports our growing population now, and it's an investment in the future Queensland, which is being shaped by the mega projects that will be the legacy of the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. We want to see Queenslanders spending less time in transit and more time at their destination, because a better public transport system creates real productivity gains. When people spend less time commuting, they can be more productive as individuals because they have more time for work, for leisure activities, and for rests. The study backs this up. Some studies show a GDP return of 1 to 5 for every dollar invested in public transport. A US study showed for every $1 billion invested, there was a $5 billion return in GDP. This government's $37 billion transport big build is the biggest road and transport investment in Queensland's history. And it includes $14 billion of investment in our rail network. $14 billion to create the connected rail network of the future. From the Gold Coast up through Logan, under the Brisbane River and the CBD, and then up to the Sunshine Coast. That's almost 57 kilometres of new track connecting the spine of the southeast corner. Gold Coast Light Rail Stage 3, Logan and Gold Coast Faster Rail, and Cross River Rail, as well as the Sunshine Coast Direct Rail to Caloundra and future stages planned to get us all the way to Maroochydore. All backed by the Queensland Train Manufacturing Program, building 65 new 6-car passenger trains in Maryborough. The size and scale of the investment is incredible, and it's not by accident. Our investments are bringing the Queensland rail network into the 21st century and improving efficiency. Faster, easier, more comfortable journeys supported by high-capacity stations to move customers quickly. Queensland's public transport system isn't what it could or should be. It's a function of the way the system has evolved, with different levels of government controlling different parts of the network and different modes of transport. Anyone who has been to Brisbane knows that your train arrives at the station and there's no bus to take you on the next leg of your journey, or vice versa. We've made progress, don't get me wrong. It's better today than it used to be. Over the last few months, the Brisbane Lord Mayor and I have been working together to get our capital city transport humming. And I want to thank him for working with me to get that done. As a result, the Queensland Government is investing an extra $75 million to add 160,000 extra trips to the Brisbane bus network every year and to get the Brisbane Metro up and running. But proper integration is the missing piece. I'm determined to bring that together. That's why, if elected, in October I will create an independent transport authority for the South East. The new Transport Authority will work in conjunction with our local government partners and Queensland Rail to outline a longer-term, jointly agreed vision for the growth and evolution of our transport network. and to set out the future of public transport planning and investment, including key routes in the South East Queensland region all the way out to 2032. TransLink will be a one-stop shop for trains and buses and making sure they all work together. Moving out from under the Department of Transport and Main Roads, TransLink will have its own board and CEO and be empowered to ensure scheduling, services and planning across our transport system are synchronised. And if elected, we will set up a new all-traffic management centre at Kedron. In a truly multimodal operations centre, road, rail, bus, light rail and ferry operations will be overseen together as part of one traffic management centre. Sitting side by side at the new Kedron Centre, state and local government staff will be able to work together to create a safer, more efficient, more effective, more accessible network. For our hardworking transport workers, this won't change their pay, conditions or employment relationship, but what it will mean is a better, more responsive service for commuters across our state. Together, these measures will create the integration that has been lacking from our public transport system in the southeast. Ultimately, the winners will be the passengers. Passengers who will no longer have the state and council running duplicate services on one route, no services on another. Passengers who will be able to get off their train and jump on the bus that takes them on the next leg of their journey in a seamless system. Outside the southeast, public transport will get a boost too. We will review the public transport network in Mount Isa, Maryborough, Hervey Bay, Gladstone, Rockhampton and Yeppoon in the next term of government to improve services, routes and service frequency. Public transport is critical, especially in the southeast. But in a state like Queensland, most travel will be by road, especially in rural and regional Queensland. I've spoken already about our record transport investment. But what I didn't mention was that the majority of that is being spent outside the Brisbane metropolitan area. And that will always be the case under a government I lead. If elected in October, we will guarantee that at least 55% of road funding will be outside of Brisbane. Because I know the regions are our powerhouses. They're the powerhouses of our state. And I know the investment we put into our regions is an investment in the prosperity of our whole state. For example, from 2027, we will increase our investment in the Bruce Highway to $250 million a year, an increase of $50 million every year. The Bruce Highway is the economic spine of Queensland. We need to keep it moving efficiently. The Bruce Highway Upgrade Program is the largest roads infrastructure program in Queensland. We're improving safety, flood resilience and capacity to keep Queensland on the move. It's no good having great roads if you can't afford to drive on them. That's why we've slashed car rego by 20% on top of freezing rego earlier. Did I mention that once I'd saved enough to buy a car, I stopped catching the train from Petrie and started wishing petrol was cheaper? I know the cost of fuel has been hitting hard for all Queenslanders, and especially those in our regions. Queenslanders tell me fuel is one of the top items impacting their budgets. What elements of the cost of living do you really think we need to work on?
Probably petrol's a big one. Petrol.
Yeah, diesel as well.
I pay about $120 a week with the amount of travelling that I do.
So today I'm announcing that if elected in October, I will legislate to limit petrol price rises to once per day and will require online notification of any price rise the day before it happens. There is no need for fuel prices to be jumping around all day and for retailers to only notify customers after it has happened. Western Australia has already adopted this model, and I will too. I will give more power to consumers to get the best price. We will work with the RSEQ to trial a daily limit on increases in fuel prices to no more than 5 cents a litre per day. The RSEQ has identified that Queensland has the least competitive petrol market. Fewer independent retailers mean higher prices and a longer price cycle. It's harder for motorists here to predict the best day to fill their tanks. I am determined to act to deliver more competition because that will mean cheaper petrol for Queenslanders. So if elected in October, I'll create a fast-track planning pathway to encourage more competition and get smaller, independent budget retailers into our market. I will use the state's planning powers and publicly owned transport and main roads land to provide a more level playing field for independents and smaller retailers that are charging less. But that won't change things fast enough. Public ownership is how we have kept our energy prices low. I believe public ownership can increase competition and keep petrol and diesel prices down too. That's why today I'm announcing that if elected in October, I will establish 12 new state-owned fuel stations to increase competition in key locations and drive lower, more reliable prices. Owned by Energy Queensland, our state-owned fuel stations will operate on a cost recovery basis. They will sell petrol and diesel alongside electric vehicle fast chargers at 12 initial sites to be determined by government in partnership with industry stakeholders. Currently, when you fuel up your car with petrol, you're sending money offshore to big multinationals. Our publicly owned fuel stations won't be taking a profit. Sites will be selected based on maximising competition and providing motorists with the choice of lower cost fuel. And we will work with the smaller independent retailers, not against them. So that's my plan for an affordable, efficient, sustainable and connected transport system for Queensland. It starts with 50-cent fares, but it is much bigger than that. I have delivered plans to address the challenges that I identified in my first speech as Premier on community safety, housing, cost of living, health, and early intervention. And there is evidence those plans are working and that we have turned a corner. Now I want to tell Queenslanders about my plans for the future. Starting with transport today, you will also see me talk more about cheaper energy, better healthcare, and improving our environment and our lifestyle. Now, my opponent is doing his very best to avoid outlining any plans at all. That's one of the ways he and I are very different. He wants to be a small target. I want to outline a big vision. He wants to paint a negative picture of our state. I know Queensland is great and can be even better. In October, Queenslanders will have a choice between my clear and detailed vision for Queensland and an opposition who are unknown and who are determined to stay that way. I am seeking a mandate for the vision that I have for the future of Queensland. Mandates are important. If governments are going to maintain faith with the community, we need to outline our plans for the future, rather than asking people to trust us with little or no information on what we will do if we are elected. A lot will happen between now and October 26. But I can guarantee you two things. One, nobody will ever call me a small target. And two, I'm not about to die wondering. Thank you all very much.
you. Thank you, Premier. Gosh, there was a lot in there.
I think that's the longest speech I've ever given.
Yeah,
so
no,
I'm a short talker.
There was an absolute ton of information and new announcements in there. Can I say to the audience, we'd love for you to be participants in the conversation. Those of you who are clearly familiar with our events have already been putting plenty of questions into the Pigeonhole app. If you haven't done so and you are interested in doing so, you can jump into Pigeonhole. The passcode for today is State of QLD, all caps, and that's CEDA.pigeonhole.at, and that will direct you there. Can I tell you, though, there are already more questions than I will ever be able to answer unless we're planning on staying for dinner as well. So one of the things that you can do is jump in and vote on existing questions. So if it's ballpark what you're going to ask, please just vote so it'll move up the list and I'll know to ask that. To the school students in the room, where are you? Where's this? Okay. You're on notice. If you've got a question, I'm going to ask one or two quick questions and I'm going to make sure that you get a question as well. And for anyone else in the room, if you would really like to ask your question in person, please let one of my team know. There are mics in the room and we can do that as well. I'm going to be a little bit unoriginal, Premier, and start with the Olympics. I am a sporting tragic, so I have been glued to the TV. I've got a few, anyone this morning would have seen the adopted Gold Coast surfer, Jason, winning a silver medal, so you can claim him. Carolyn was telling me that Griffith's got 10 medalists, gold medalists, and no doubt the Dolphins, you just claim them as entirely from Queensland. So it's been a great games. But one of the things that struck me was actually reflecting on the Eiffel Tower, right? So the Eiffel Tower, built in 1889, people thought it would survive for sort of 3 or 4 or 5 decades, and yet here it is, legacy. I mean, the definition of legacy infrastructure. You can see where I'm going. There is a question in here already, but I am really interested to hear from you about how your government is really focused on the legacy of the games, the legacy infrastructure, because really what we've seen across the world is that much of this infrastructure actually does drive the structure of the economy for far longer than we expect.
I've been struck by how, for 3 years and 11 months, everyone wants to bag the Olympics, and then for 2 weeks, we all love the Olympics. It's been just fantastic to have that goodwill and optimism and positivity around it. And I said a bit about that last week. First of all, I think you talk about the Eiffel Tower. I think Queensland's natural assets leave the Eiffel Tower for dead. Not just the mountains and the river and Moreton Bay, but wider afield. The marathon's going to start and finish outside the Alex Head Surf Club, which is the best place to have a beer in the entire world. That's where we're starting and finishing the marathon. Those vistas and backdrops are going to be what people will be talking about around the world, just like they are talking about the Eiffel Tower right now. Obviously, the venues program, there's been a lot of focus on, and it will be a fantastic legacy. Some people, you'd think we were doing this thing on the cheap, like it's a $7.1 billion venues program. It's massive. The $2.5 billion arena at Roma Street will change the city. The $200 million sporting facility where the boxing will be hosted in Petrie. If you'd told me that we were going to have an Olympic facility in Petrie when I was growing up there, I wouldn't have believed you. But the true legacy is the transport and the ability to invest into transport. I don't think we would have been able to get federal government funding for the Sunshine Coast Direct Line if it weren't for the role it plays in the Olympics and Paralympics, and the entire event itself will sit on top of all of that region-changing, particularly heavy rail infrastructure that we've been investing into in recent years. So I'm excited again. It's going to be great.
The first thing I've got to do is apologise to Jack Robertson for calling him Jason, who was in fact the surfer who won the silver medal. So the question on infrastructure for the Olympics was the number one question. The second one, of course, is really closely linked. When you think about all of the infrastructure build that's happening here, when you think about the energy transition, there is clearly a focus on skill shortages. And so the next most popular question is really about how your government is going to work to address the shortages of qualified professionals across a broad range of sectors.
It's a really great question. Those capacity constraints really are what we're butting up against. You know, our infrastructure program alone is massive, and you know, you get some people out there calling for us to do more infrastructure, other people out there saying that we can't possibly do as much infrastructure as we are, but you can't really cut it back. You know, the Olympics have to be in 2032, so you can't push that back. We need the hospitals now, we need the schools now, we need the roads now, we need the rail now, and so we need to find ways to deliver on those things. Skilled labour is incredibly important. That's why we've made TAFE free for most of the skills that we'll need. We've asked the Australian government to prioritise construction skills in their program because we need the migrants to come and build their houses first. And so all of the new skills strategy we launched not that long ago. So we do have those plans there, but we're deeply conscious of those capacity constraints.
Can I head to the floor and over here to see if there is a question? Students going to jump in? Excellent.
Hello, I'm Briar Crawford, Year 11 student at Our Ladies College. And I was just wondering, because we are seeing that young people, many of us are in mental health crises, and there is a huge spike in young people who are struggling with their mental health and resultingly are unable to attend school even. I was wondering if there were any plans to address that issue in Queensland.
Yeah. That is a really great question and a big issue for our young people. A couple of years back, we introduced a mental health levy to raise the funds needed to fund our Queensland health and community-based health services, and we're still building up that capability because there wasn't the capability there, but it is growing. And what I think is making a huge difference is the extra health services that we're putting into schools and locating in schools. I was out at Queensland State High, which is in my community, last week to see the giant new wellbeing hub that we're building there, and it will have visiting GPs and paediatricians and social workers and psychiatrists, so that we can make sure that we're getting healthcare to those kids that need it, rather than relying on them or their parents to seek it out and find it. I think that's a big part of the solution, is what we can do with health services in schools.
Thanks, and thank you so much for the question. I'm going to ask one more question, but if there's other people from the room who would like to ask a question, please raise your hands now so the team can bring a microphone across. The question here for you, Premier, around, I guess, the tension, if you like, between addressing the cost of living pressures, particularly as it relates to petrol right now, but then also the challenges around reducing emissions. And so the question is specifically, why not move to encourage the adoption of more low-emission vehicles or electric vehicles? And we all understand the sort of economics of that, when you can essentially charge for free, if you like. What's your thinking on that? And there is another question deeper in the list around just what the approach is on in terms of net zero, the transition challenges, and how you're thinking about that in terms of the regional and remote regions of Queensland.
Yeah, you're right. That is a tension, and one I'm deeply conscious of. Addressing climate change for me is one of the reasons I'm in politics. And what I know, though, is that we will get no support for decarbonisation and the economic transition if all people are worried about is filling their car up and how much that will cost and whether that leaves enough money to buy fresh food for their kids. And so we have to do both. We have to support them with the costs that they have now, while assisting them to transition to lower carbon technologies over time. But for most Queenslanders, converting to an EV now is a privilege that is a long way from them. And I think we need to bring them with us, and we'll get a lot more support for what we know we need to do for the future if we can relieve some of those material concerns.
Another question from the floor over here, thanks.
Hi, I'm Ava Devine. I'm Vice Captain at Queensland State High School. I just wanted to touch on the cost of living again, specifically around young people and what we can do to ensure the prosperity of low cost of living for young people, especially students in the future years.
That's a great question. We're working, first of all, to look at all of the costs associated with schooling, because a lot of that has increased and gotten out of hand, and the Education Minister has some good plans there to address that. We've expanded our school breakfast and lunch programs. Feeding kids at school, I think, is one of the best things we can do for them, but also for their teachers. It means we can at least know they're getting some 1 or 2 decent meals a day. I think 50-cent fares and addressing public transport costs is something a lot of students have told me that they're very pleased about, and that was very popular when I was at Central Station yesterday, although they did all say they were going to spend this money they've saved on McDonald's or KFC. So I don't know what other objectives that might cut across. So we are constantly looking for ways that we can support young people. Like I know when you start travelling to university, just that transport cost is such a big deal.
You brought the 50-cent fares back up again. I was going to ask you, and it is one of the questions as well, but I was going to ask you about this in terms of what the long-term kind of plan is and goal is there. And you spoke a bit about it in your speech, but the question here is, it's a great initiative, is it going to stay forever? That, of course, is the real challenge for you, is having done it, where to next? And what is your expectation? I mean, hopefully it does bring a bunch more people into public transport. That has its own emissions reductions sort of benefits as well. But how are you going to juggle all of that?
Well, it's day 2, so we'll see how the next few months pan out. I really hope it works, and if it does work, I really do think we can justify keeping something like it in place. That doesn't mean it's necessarily 50 cents, but I've always thought it never made much sense to me how much more we charge people who travel the furthest when they're the people we most want to get off the road. Commuters from my neck of the woods pay $6.50 each way, or used to pay $6.50 each way. Commuters from the Gold Coast can be paying $20. And if we can get those long distance travellers off the road, the benefits, the environmental benefits, the benefits for them are so much greater. So if it works, then I'm confident we can find a way to keep something in place. If people don't use it and it doesn't make a difference, well, it will be harder to justify. What I tried to say in the speech, though, is, if you think about the sunk investment in particularly rail, like it is billions and billions of dollars, the cost of lost fare revenue is actually only a tiny fraction of that. And once you've spent all of that money building the train lines, why wouldn't you do everything you can to get people on them? So I hope it works. Early signs are good. So we were at 87% of pre-COVID levels. Yesterday was 94% of pre-COVID levels. So on the first day, that's not bad.
I'm going to get one of my economists to come over there and have a chat with the students too, to figure out if we can do a project on how quickly parents adjust to the cheaper fares. So how many Macca's meals they're going to get before changes are made. Top of the pops now, and it is really racing up the ladder here, is this question. Transport is critical. We've seen how the CFMEU has disrupted the delivery of critical transport infrastructure. How committed is your government to addressing that issue?
Look, we've said that primary responsibility for regulating unions and for private sector workplaces, it sits with the Australian government, but we are backing them in the action that they are taking in the construction industry. We will probably need to legislate to ensure that that administrator has the powers that they need over the state registered entity. So there is an entity of that union that is regulated by state law, and we'll do that as quickly as we can. You know, we want construction workers to continue to have a really strong union that keeps them safe at work and makes sure that they have good and fair wages and conditions, but we also need to take action to stop the kind of illegal behaviour, the bullying and intimidation, and that's what that administrator's job will be to do.
I knew I was going to get to very few of these questions. I have to admit I've lost this question somewhere in the mix, so I'm just going to ask it from memory. There was a question in the list around people from remote and regional areas in the past moving to urban locations to get access to better healthcare and to better care services at different points in their life, who are now unable to do so because of the cost of housing and the cost of living pressures, which I felt more acutely in urban locations. How is your government responding to that, and how are you thinking about the quality and accessibility and affordability of care services in regional Queensland?
You know, you wouldn't know it from some of the commentary, but nowhere in the world delivers regional health services anywhere near like Queensland does. From our big regional hubs, you know, Townsville University Hospital is a hospital that any city in the world could be proud of, and we have it in Townsville, all the way out to the smaller hospital, you know, new hospitals in places like Kingaroy and Roma. We're building, I opened the new health centre in a tiny place called Julia Creek. You know, people literally come from around the world to see how we do regional healthcare. They come here to see how we do telehealth, how the Royal Flying Doctors Service works. Like, all of that is unique to Queensland. It's a Queensland miracle, and we should be more proud of it, frankly, those health services that we deliver. And so in any of our provincial cities, you really do get world-class city-like care, and as I say, I think it's a marvel.
Final question, I guess, to sort of close things out, and this might sound a little bit unfair, but one of the hot questions early on, one of the hot questions early on was really wanting to ask you, is there an area that you think your government isn't doing as well, when you're looking to the future, that you think you can do better, and is there anything that you'd sort of want to put your finger on now to sort of say, look, we recognise we do this a little bit better and this is what we're thinking about?
If I've got one frustration, it's probably that we haven't communicated as well to Queenslanders the necessity of our renewable energy plan. You know, it's world leading, it's incredible. You know, the people in this room who are in the energy system will tell you how great it is. But what I don't think we've yet managed to properly explain to Queenslanders the risks. You know, we're a high power using industrial state, and all of our customers have decarbonisation targets, and the easiest way for them to meet those targets is to stop buying products from us made with coal, largely with coal, and buy instead from people who are making it with renewables. And if you look at places like Townsville and Mackay and Gladstone, that's a risk for their entire economy. And I don't think I think in our efforts to talk up the positives of that plan, I don't think we've really outlined what's at stake for a place like Queensland if we don't go with that plan.
Well, thank you so much for participating in our State of the State again. Well, your first time, but to have you back on the CEDA stage is always a fantastic opportunity for our members to hear directly from you around the issues that are on your mind. Can you please join me in thanking the Premier? Clint is making his way onto the stage to formally close the event. I was hoping he was going to be just a little bit slower because I did want to acknowledge that this is the last opportunity I'm going to have to share the stage with Clint in his current capacity. He is going to be moving on from CEDA to take up a fantastic new opportunity. We're very excited for him in that and for the organisation he's going to. But I did just want to acknowledge the amazing contribution that he's made to CEDA. We've always had a fantastic team up here in Queensland, and Clint has been vital to that for a long, long time. So I did just want to take the opportunity to thank him for that.
It's a little bit weird to feel like the kid who was just given the birthday present, now there's like 1,000 people watching you open it. Look, thank you very much, Melinda, and thank you for coming up today and the kind words and the support and being up here to do that with the Premier. It's never an easy gig being up here with the people we're up here with, so thank you very much. Premier, it's so clear how much you love the state. Best wishes to you, and please take all of our very best wishes with you for your work ahead. Good luck. I'd also like to again thank our State of the State major sponsors, the University of Queensland, and supporting sponsors Colin Biggers and Paisley and Energy Queensland. And of course, all of the staff here at BCEC and BCEC's leadership. We're a fantastic team. It's no wonder that it is such a world-class venue that it is. Thank you for having us and taking care of us as well. I agree. Thank you. Up next for CEDA here in Brisbane, our roundtable with Minister Fentiman, who I can see sitting right there in front of me, and also Brisbane 2032 Lessons from Paris, back here in the big room on the 18th of September with a cracking program of speakers who are returning from Paris to share their lessons with this Olympic city. You'll find more information on all of those by visiting ceda.com.au or by talking to any of the CEDA team who are here today, who I'd also like to thank for their efforts. Finally, as Melinda mentioned, today will be the last time you'll see me on this stage in this capacity. 11 years ago, one of the most brilliant people and clever people I've met anywhere in the world brought me into this little organisation which I love so dearly, and am finally moving on from next Friday. Kyle Murphy's here today, and mate, there was no way I wasn't calling you out, so thank you for that opportunity. And when I look around this room, 10 years after being up here for the first time, I legitimately now look out and see a pretty good sea of mates, a lot of friends. So I simply wanted to say to all of those of you, thank you. Thank you for welcoming to your offices, onto your stages, into your boardrooms, always answering the phone when Clint calls and showing up to CEDA year after year and the support. And thank you to all of those of you who've ever shown me great kindness. It's not an easy gig, like I said, being up here with the senior most people in the country as for a living, but it absolutely has been my sincerest pleasure. We talk about important stuff and we think really big at CEDA, which is why I'll always love this organisation. And what I know from my time in this role is simply that if you try to do good work, do good things, provide opportunities to those around you when you have the opportunity to do that, that changes lives. And changing lives changes families, and changing families changes communities. So let's do more of that. That's it for now. Those of you who know me well know that good principled people with great skills, curious minds and shared values are totally my jam. And so you'll see me rock up with a mob like that very, very soon. But for now and for the final time, thank you all for being with us today and in doing so supporting the work of the Committee for Economic Development of Australia. Take care of each other, Queensland. Go well.